Cool. Well, as people are continuing to filter in, feel free to add where you're joining us from today, but let's go ahead and get started here. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we're here today to learn about rural ready engagement. And I was preparing for this and I was like, oh, how many times am I going to have to say rural? Rural. But today's presentation is a joint effort between the APA Community Engagement Interest Group and the Small Town and Rural Division. And our presenter is John Shepard, AICP. John is a senior planner with Marvin Planning Consultants, and he's vice chair of the Small Town and Rural Division. And he's based in rural Nebraska. See, I knew, yeah, we got a lot of rurals in this. There should be like a drinking game. Okay, we can't do alcohol. Like take a swig of coffee every time someone says rural. Uh, so John's going to share his experience with community engagement in rural communities across the Midwest and Rocky Mountain states. And before I turn it over to you, John, I just want to briefly introduce myself and my co-chair, Chris, and the Community Engagement Interest Group. Go to the next slide here. So my name's Kelly Hickler. Hi, everyone. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Community Engagement Interest Group. I'm the founder of Synovation Studio. That's my firm. I focus on innovative civic education and engagement. And also on the call is my co-chair, Chris Holler. Hi, Chris. Who is the founder of Conveo, which is the engagement platform for plans and policies and is powering this webinar today. So thank you for that, Chris. I don't know if you want to say anything or.
Hi, let's move on.
Okay. And if you are not already a member of our interest group, we would love to have you join us. It's free. You don't have to be an APA member to join. Once you sign up, you'll receive our newsletter so you can get notified of other webinars like this one. And all of our webinars are uploaded to our YouTube channel. So please head over there. You can check out past recordings. You can see this one again once it's uploaded. And lastly, we are a truly community-powered organization, meaning that we thrive on the content submitted by our members. So if you have case studies, best practices, resources to share, ideas for future webinars, please drop us a line at hello@apacommunityengagement.org. We'd love to hear your ideas and hear from you. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, John.
Okay, let's hit the right screen here.
And I'm going to stop. I'll stop sharing mine. There we go. Cool.
Okay, is my illustration showing up now?
Yes,
Yep.
it is.
Okay, so excuse me. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Chris, for inviting me to for this presentation. Our working title, Rural Ready Engagement, Practical Tools for Small Town Planners. It's a joint presentation of the Community Engagement Interest Group and the Small Town and Rural Planning Division. That, let's see, there we go. So rural ready engagement. My name is John Shepard, member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. STAR is applying for AICP CM credit for the course. As any APA members know, they're going through the update of the new computer system. So if that gets approved, we will post that in the usual places. We'll see. The APA's trying to do a lot of different things, and the staff does the best they can with what they've got to do. They are good stewards of our dues. I can tell you that. Professionally, I'm a senior planner, Marvin Planning Consultants, located in beautiful David City, Nebraska, population 2,995. I live in rural Butler County, outside of David City. That we're about an hour out of Lincoln and Omaha. Keith Marvin is the founder and principal of Marvin Planning Consultants. I want to thank him for, he's been very involved in APA Nebraska with the Small Town Rural Planning Division as well. He's our past chair right now. I'm serving as vice chair of communications for the STAR division. We just finally got our new site on planning.org at smalltown.planning.org. You should be able to check it out. Our cover picture is beautiful Galena, a star among small towns in the Midwest. We're still trying to fill some things in there. Members can find our newsletter. That also a shout out for STAR. Mary Howard, our vice chair for programs, is wrapping up our awards program. They met earlier this week with a panel of people you probably recognize their names. A lot of good submittals. Hard to make a decision. I'm glad as communications, I just get to write about the decisions they make. We do 4 newsletters a year. We do the socials in the usual places. That I've done a blog for a number of years at jcshepard.com. That's everything from my music to Civil War diaries to my long reads on urban and regional planning. That's also my handle at Blue Sky. You can find me on the Twitter X, and Star is also on Blue Sky, and it's still on the Twitter X as much as anybody is. I also post some short reads on medium.com. It's jcshepard.aicp. If you're interested in more of this, I warn you on the blog, I get a little wordy. So that's it's as much as reference. It's my homework. When I want to know about engagement, I go out, I read stuff, I write about it and see what works. And then we try to implement it, and what doesn't work, then we try something different. So rural ready engagement, community engagement for the small town and rural planner. If I can share one thing here, the important part of planning is the planning. It's not the plan. I love plans. I love good, big, thick, 200-page plans with colored, glossy photos and Esri arc maps at 11 by 17 and 24 by 36. And I love all these tools, but we're simply documenting a process. And the worst thing a community can do is hire outside experts to gift them a plan, and then it sits on a shelf. Big sigh. What I'm hoping to cover here today is one, let's understand where we fit into engagement in the rural planning process. When I say that this, again, I'm not speaking as a point of view of an expert, except of course for perspective of qualifying for the AICP certification maintenance credits. But I'm trying to go through this as an example of our learning process and how we've tried some things and what seemed to work and other things that we're constantly trying to do better. I'm hoping to share a takeaway of some I call it small town ready toolkit. Participation and visioning. That's actually how we approach a lot of our comprehensive plans, our zoning regulations. We try to share with community members a toolkit that they can then choose what to use from. You never get done with the plan or the planning process, but you never know what opportunity is going to come up. So let's try to share a toolkit here. And maybe if we're lucky, leave with 3 or 4 specific tactics that you can try over the short to medium term here. Where engagement fits in the process. So first part of this, as members of the community engagement interest group or small town rural planning, or folks who are just interested in the topic, we like to think of ourselves as being comprehensive. There's a number of different models from back in planning school. I tend to be more of a rational planner. Other folks, adapt other schools. You look broadly at any plan process. There's a number of steps. You start off, define your purpose and scope. Then we move to inventory and analysis. Gather all your data. What does it tell you? Then third step, community vision and public engagement. Now, really, this diagram 2 and 3 are parallel processes. That inventory analysis is what does the data say, but the community vision and public engagement is what do the people say. Sometimes the numbers and the people agree. A lot of times people don't trust the numbers, or especially in small towns, the numbers just have the margins of error are too large to trust. So it's a bit of a feedback loop here. Both of those then come down to your goals, policies, where are you going to go? Action plans and tools then lead to adoption, implementation, monitoring. Another part of this is it looks, as I said, it looks like a step 1, 2, 3, 4 that rational planners love to have. But out in the real world, as you all know, this planning process is a mess. And we have to do that because we have to keep people involved and react to as we go. One of the things we're trying to do is how can we make these projects more incremental? So even though community vision and public engagement is a step, it needs to be part of every step. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Again, many times that's more of an aspiration than what actually works out in the real world. So one question out to the group to think about. Let's think about how do you apply what we're talking about today to what you're working on right now. So if you're in the middle of a planning process, what stage of your current plan are you in? Or what stage are you on or preparing your next planning project? Then think about what do you think most needs better engagement? Because even though community vision engagement is a thing, it's part of everything else. So apply this as we're going through and discussing this. Think about how you could put these tools to work to help you do a better job tomorrow. Because we don't know what works better until we try something. I do want a shout out, and I didn't want to take time to go into more detail because there are people that devote their whole life to the IAP2 spectrum of public participation. I'm aware of it, that I've used that as a touchstone for many years. Some of the larger jurisdictions require certification on that. I'm a small town planner. I got to do a lot of different things, but that's something to check out. That they have 5 levels. They're not steps, but 5 levels: inform, consult, involve, collaborate, empower. If you're interested in public participation and haven't stumbled across IAP2, get a cup of coffee and you can lose yourself in that for some good professional development. Let's talk a little bit more about public participation in small towns. Parent principles and pitfalls. That we talk about community engagement, but I don't know about where you went to school, or a lot of planners actually got a degree other than planning. Great thing about planning, we can all be planners. But really, when we're looking at small towns, we have to be careful about applying those things we learned in planning school on a personal basis. A small town, a small business, it's personal. But engagement matters here because a big part of where we have challenges in small town rural planning is building legitimacy and trust. One, people will live with our decisions longer in smaller communities, and they remember how we made them. In a big city, if somebody may not ever know, well, how did that, transit plan get done? In your small town, they're going to know who to blame, but then they also, you can make better decisions through this process. Build that legitimacy and trust through engagement leads to better decisions. It's part of what I said. We have to use the data, but the data don't tell as good of a story in a small town. We need to blend the numbers and stories to correct our blind spots and test our assumptions, which is also why we're trying to do more incremental do more incremental projects. It's hard though. We just get busy. The other part of it is, again, I've had county planning, I've had planning commission members, county board members say, well, this is a waste of time. I'm just going to take their plan and copy paste it. Okay, good luck with that. You're going to get their product. Maybe a lot of it is similar from one county to the other, or one village to a village or city. But part of what we need to do as planners, whether you're on staff, you're a consultant, you're a student, I need to do a better job shifting from my plan to their plan and from staff's plan to the planning commission members. Because if you just give the planning commission a plan, it's going to go on the shelf and they're never going to look at it. Does that mean it actually happens? Sometimes, but we could all do a better job of that. I was reminded, I was going through some of my older notes. I was reminded of a post several years ago. Scott Doyen of Placemakers firm. He challenged us on the points of the perils of dismissive engagement. He used the example Steve Jobs famously said, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. And now that can sound pretty arrogant from a planner's point of view, but it's not that people don't know what they want. They know what they want. But I've done this. You ask people, well, what do you want to see in your downtown? Well, everybody wants rainbows and puppy dog tails. But don't ask somebody if they want a puppy when you can't give them a puppy. In fact, that's not even part of our discussion. We need to get better at asking meaningful questions. And I can't say I've always done that. I want to get better at that. But anyways, there's a whole science of survey and all of that as well. But again, let's be careful not to have undue expectations. Core ideas. And I'm sorry if I'm talking fast here. That I did cut back the material I was going to have so that we weren't here for 2 hours. But anyway, like I said, I got the long read on the blog. Public participation in the small towns on the same idea. Think about some core ideas here when we're talking about public participation. Start early. Use your kickoff meetings and your first content to shape the rest of your work plan. Don't assume you know everything, especially consultants. We do our work plan up front and we're loath to change it, but sometimes you got to change it. The time to announce what you're doing is not the public hearing. That can be hard to get people to pay attention. We want to be transparent. And frankly, most of the small town planners I know are very happy to be transparent. They'll talk to anybody about what we do. It's, if people will come and talk about that, but you need to be careful about how we do things to even avoid that perception of backroom deals. No, you can come to our meetings. They're public. Nobody wants to because they got better things to do. Use multiple channels. That some of these are the things we've been doing, town halls. But let's go out. Does your county have a good county fair? Go to the county fair. Sometimes that works for us. Other times we just sit around and eat corn dogs. Churches, some places, those are acceptable third places. Other places, maybe not as much. It depends on your local culture. Coffee shops, downtown, use your surveys out in the community. Talk to local media. If you still have a weekly newspaper, that is a treasure. That is a treasure. And I know a lot of us have been burned by poor media coverage. They're doing their job for the most part. Treasure your local print media if you still have them, your radio. If you got bloggers, talk to them. Just be careful what you say. There is no such thing as off the record. The other thing about using your multiple channels, getting out to where people are, don't make them come to City Hall. Just don't. You go to City Hall if you're just being like being called to the principal's office. Example, I was just this morning asked to speak at a local Sertoma club. He said, well, they're not a big group. That's where the people are who want to know more about what we're doing. I was a member of Rotary in Pagosa Springs, member of the Kiwanis when we were in Minnesota. Go to people where they are. Report back. This is the other part of that we need to let people know how we're going, but then we got to balance the participation fatigue. I was just talking to a city administrator in central Nebraska this morning. He said, people are tired of seeing me talk all the time because he goes out and talks to people everywhere. He said, they're tired of hearing from me. Well, it's just, you got to adapt. You have to adapt to that. We don't want to go so far that they see us coming to the grocery store, they actually go the other direction. Design for inclusion. Again, depending where you are, sometimes we just don't call inclusion, but it means getting out to everybody in your community, not just the people who show up. We usually make outreach to the schools. Some schools are very responsive. Others, they just don't have the time, understaffed, under budget, security. We had some really good results in a community I'm going to talk about later, Burwell, Nebraska, but they're at school. But also, reach out to renters, not just homeowners. The county I live in is going through a planning process, and the survey made it feel like a renter was not, they asked you, do you own land? Do you farm your own land? Renters are citizens. Reach out to them. There are other underrepresented groups, immigrants. You do the best you can. We're all trying to do that, but don't just wait for people to come to you. And part of that goes to respecting local context. What the work we do, the work our volunteers do, if you've got a good chairman of your planning commission, that makes your life so much easier. But we need to respect our local context. What we're doing is relational. There's overlapping roles. I bet you everybody on your local planning commission, that's just one of their volunteer roles in addition to one or two other jobs that they've got. Also overlapping roles. The mayor may also be on the volunteer fireman or firewoman. Nobody in a small town can only do one thing. Sometimes they're only, a lot of our county board members, they're county board member because they needed health insurance. We get that a lot in rural communities, especially ag areas. Know your local politics and history wherever you're at. I do more of that than other people do just because I like family history. And just every place is different. It's so cool. There's also, we've got to remember, a social risk of dissent in a small town, especially in a small hearing room. You all know that implicitly, or you would not have lasted in a small town and rural setting. It's the same thing like in neighborhoods, in cities, highly visible positions. Frankly, sometimes you can't come to the public hearing and speak freely, but also people have to take responsibility for what they say. So have multiple ways. Don't just have the room where people have to speak up in front of everybody else. Have opportunities for small groups, individual interviews, surveys. When you're doing your online surveys, I like to keep them open, but we keep an eye on IP addresses. We've had very little problems with people stuffing online surveys. So visioning as engagement. Whose future is this? A lot of planning becomes adversarial just because it's the world we live in. But what we're trying to do is get to shared direction. Now it doesn't always mean we're going in the same direction, but we want to try to help understand where do people in your community want to go, especially if that's not always the same direction. The visioning is big and fuzzy and a pretty broad term. Visioning is not an alternative to engagement, but visioning is an important part of engagement. I think of visioning as a North Star, which of course is more relevant further north you are, but visioning is the North Star that ties together your engagement, your data, your quantitative and qualitative things, and points in a direction. But like the stars of a constellation, there are many things that go into a community, and we're trying to make a tangible whole of that. The other part of this is I've been trying to think of my plans more as a playbook, but the vision is the poetry. Nobody is, I know that the famous saying, make no small plans, or they fail to stir the blood of men and women. But big plans are hard to implement. The small parts of those big plans get implemented, but what stirs the blood of our residents is vision, not setbacks. So we need both. We need poetry, we need the playbook. And frankly, a lot of the small town folks that pay our bills, that the decision makers who have to justify tax revenue, they need that vision to sell what we do to the folks in their communities as well. Make it easier for your bosses to justify what we do. So some ideas with visioning here, some ideas. Use visioning to coax themes to the surface. This is, again, a part of that incremental, doing better at incremental processes. Use your earlier engagement to identify themes and sort themes from one-off comments. Keep the language local. Use kitchen table English. And I'm just as bad as the next one. That whole idea of, if you find yourself using initials like TIFF, stop, go back, start over. Depending on your community, se habla español si puedes. That's about all I remember from 4 years of high school and college Spanish and donde está el tacos. But do what's appropriate for your community, but also be careful of Google Translate. We had an experience in Grand Island, Nebraska. They have 50 languages in their schools. We used Google Translate for some public material. We had a member on our team who knew Castilian Spanish. The words were not the same for the people from Honduras and Venezuela. Just be careful. Tell a story in text and graphics. Some people like text, some people like graphics. Use both, but bring that down to some core value phrases that, again, translates from keeping your local language, but also then ties your vision to your plan elements, your land use, housing, economic development, facilities, hazard mitigation. We put hazard mitigation in all of our comp plans. Unfortunately, hazard mitigation is legion for living inside the emergency management box. But when your community floods, it affects everybody. Our emergency management folks I've worked with would love to have more people involved, but FEMA's requirements are so narrow. And frankly, people care more about emergencies when the water is lapping at their door. It's just how things are. You know that. As I mentioned before, we're looking at transparency and trust. I talk a little bit about tools to spark engagement. And I started this off and I had half a dozen slides with all these gee whiz things. I do demos and the technology never works. You've been to conferences, you've seen the tools. There's some really cool stuff out there and they're getting cheaper and easier to use all the time. So instead, I want to talk about some principles. So when we're talking about engagement in general, like I mentioned before, get out of City Hall. Start with trusted places. That people go to the city council chambers when they're in trouble. They go to the courthouse when they have to go to court. Find someplace else if you can. Libraries. I love meeting in libraries. Schools, churches, if that's appropriate for your community. Senior centers, co-ops, cafes, fairgrounds, 4-H buildings. Those are great. Now, especially great if you're working on a county project and the county lets you use their facilities. Sometimes you got to the county board has to make a donation to 4-H to use their facilities. It's just part of the deal. And all of our projects are extremely low budget. It's just how you have to work it these days. Do the best you can with what you've got. If you've got good weather, meet outdoors with a backup plan. Use your advisory committee focus groups, kitchen table conversations with, farmers, business owners, youth, service providers. Talk to anybody who will talk to you. That's hard for me. I'm a data guy. I have to make myself go out. But I've had some of the most interesting conversations. I've had other people that we talked for 5 minutes and they're like, okay, now what? But you just have to adapt. It also helps if you've got a team, so one person can talk and somebody else takes notes. I got a great team that I've been able to use, especially the guys who've grown up with laptops and can type really, really fast. Look at pop-up engagement. I'd just say not just do something at the county fair. Have a booth at the county fair, community festivals, put a booth at your library, visit places like gyms and coffee shops. One of the guys on our staff just loves going into coffee shops and talking to people with permission, clearly. Don't want to just drop into Starbucks. That stresses me out. But meet people where they are, and also then keep an eye on implementation. Think about how do we get that public participation focused not on do you want a puppy, but would a dog park be something that people would use here? Is that something they need? What's your community? How about this downtown space that could be better utilized? And would people use a fire pit downtown, or would the fire chief completely freak out? Depends where you're at. But we need to think more about engaging people in things we can actually deliver, not just dreams. We look at the tech on this. Look at, as small town rural planners, try to look at low cost but high fit tools. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there. There are apps that do gamification. There's interactive scenario planning, structured dialogue, placemaking as engagement. There's some, as a planner, I get really excited about these. I don't have the resources to do a lot of them, but could I take some discrete elements and work it into things we're already doing? Mapping and visual tools have come a long way when we sat down with USGS topo maps and Crayolas. But sometimes the best base map you've got is a quad topo map, especially if you're working in rural areas. Take your Esri base maps and print out 24 by 36 and sit down with people around a table with a bunch of, make sure your markers aren't going to go through the table because that gets you in trouble. But sit down with a box of crayons. I've seen some consultants, they'll take a box of Legos out. Who doesn't love Legos? Well, I'm not stepping on them, but there are some neat of these other visualization tools. There's 3D modeling, extended reality, digital twin sandboxes. Now in a town of 30 people, that's probably not going to pencil out. Or 300, 3,000, maybe, especially if you can find a student project that you could tie in with some of this stuff, or you find somebody in your planning commission who's really interested in tech stuff. Look for those small wins. We've had some real good luck with students from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I know I'm involved with the University of Illinois, Department of Urban Regional Planning alumni group. They do some really cool student projects, not just up in Chicago and St. Louis, but out in some of the small towns as well. University of Colorado, Denver. Everybody likes to go up to the resort towns, but they've done some things out in the plains as well as the Front Range. So there are people out there. Talk to your professors. Talk to the folks if you went to school at one of the planning programs or geography. Not just the planning programs. Talk to whoever will talk to you. There's some other new tools coming out. So I had a picture here. We've been using Esri Story Maps as our public-facing project, and this is we pull up a page during a project, and we keep that going as long as we can, and then it comes down when the project is done. We need to do more with these. We really do. We get busy. This is also part of that pointer. I'm going to tell a tale on myself. We did this site for a new project we're doing in the city of Garnett, Kansas, just south of Topeka, Kansas City. we put this up here, our map plugin, didn't work. So we had to scramble to, like our web guy scrambled. He spent Saturday morning getting it to work because we said it was going to work. But you got to keep up with some of that. It's not always easy. But we've got a picture of the Veterans Memorial from the courthouse on. We had a comment, well, that's the Anderson County. That's not the city of Garnett. As far as we're concerned, the county seat is everything in the county is part of the county seat, and everything in the county is part of that community. We are comprehensive, but you have to be sensitive to your local content. And again, you got to know the community. And even if you have been there, people may react differently than you think of. So we changed the picture. I mean, the Veterans Memorial they did a really nice job with that. Next time I'm there, I'm going to get a picture from the cafe and put that up there. Their pie is so good. But there are also some other new tools. There are AI resources that are evolving quickly. But I also want to give a shout out to Conveo. That Chris Holler, your co-chair that you heard at the beginning, we've started working on some projects to see if how we can pull Conveo engagement platform into our projects. Because again, we're always trying some new different things. Keith Marvin, our principal, is he's very enthusiastic about what we might be able to do with that engagement platform. There are a lot of others out there, some good friends that do that. Some communities are going to be interested in doing that. Others, it's like, no, that's okay. Do what fits for what you've got. Burwell, Nebraska. So I'll tell you a bit about rural-ready engagement, small town of Burwell, Nebraska. It's a gateway to the Nebraska Sandhills. They also host Nebraska's big rodeo, one of the largest professional rodeos this side of Cheyenne. The year-round population of Burwell is about 1,000 people. But not only are they have the rodeo, but they are at the they're downhill from a major impoundment. They have a reservoir. A lot of people from Omaha during COVID started coming up with their boats and buying up property and turning them into short-term rentals because it's cheaper to park your boat in Burwell than to park it in Omaha, and then you don't have to trailer it. That the community there was looking at a lot of things. They didn't have a plan. That they pulled together a new comprehensive plan. They committed to immediate implementation, zoning map, new subdivision regulations. They also want to do a strategic plan to immediately implement the comp plan and their first ever capital improvements plan. It was a pretty big chunk to chew on. Staff and local leaders drove a practical process, but it wasn't a staff plan. It was a partnership with Community Foundation, their Chamber of Commerce, their Economic Development Group, and the local schools. This community, we had great response from the school administration, but also we met with the student council, and they were pretty frank. We asked them, what are you going to do? Do you want to stay here? If you decide to come back after college, do you think you'd feel welcome? And those answers were not always comfortable, but they needed to be heard. We actually got a couple of the students to come to the bigger town hall and have their say there as well. We held the town hall in the town square that the city did rent the back room. But again, we had great support from the Community Foundation. And we actually had our Economic Development District, we had Extension help facilitate. So it wasn't just me up there talking, it was the people in the community taking ownership of that process. That process was recognized by Nebraska APA and the Small Town Rural Planning Division last year. That we helped write the plan, but the community took it all over the top. I just got to go along for the ride. So Kelly, I see that we've had some comments in the chat. Is there anything that we need to address?
No specific questions for you yet.
Okay, no, that's fine. And I did leave some time at the end here if I don't talk too much. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Or so we've just got a couple more slides left here, and then can open to some questions. As we wrap up here, a couple things to take away. When we're looking at community engagement for the small town and rural planner, again, come back to this point I made at the beginning. The plan simply documents the planning. As I said, I'm a plan guy. I love big, thick, glossy documents. That we've started using some AI because I can't draw. Most of the illustrations in here outside of the newspaper were AI generated. They still give you figures with 6 fingers, so be careful. They can't draw a flag. AI cannot put 50 stars on a flag to save its life. And I asked it, why can't you do that? It says, we're not good at counting stuff. I don't know why. Just be careful what you're doing. You have to be careful with your prompting. But like the image on this page, took me a couple of prompts to get through. It illustrated my point. I can't draw. I could not make this picture. I know people who could. I can't do it. But again, don't overpromise. There's a lot of gee whiz stuff with AI, but you got to check it because it hallucinates, not just the pictures. I've asked it to give me case studies, and it just makes stuff up. Poof, poof. So, anyways, just be careful. Check your work. But again, the plan documents the planning process. I might write it, but it's your plan. The public participation leads us from vision to action, or the action actually leads us to the vision. There's what we think we want, and then there's what we actually are willing to do in that iterative process. Engagement leads to trust in a plan that might actually get used. I can point to a number of projects, the plans that I helped write as both in planning and economic development throughout my career. I can think of one economic development project that actually survived to pay us back, but that was because they were growing vegetables and everybody loved his vegetables in the winter. Most of the rest of the stuff, they came to us for help because the projects were iffy and you got to try it to know what's going on. That's okay. Same thing with our plans. We can talk about walkability all we want, but that means, can we actually get some sidewalks? Get some ADA ramps, please and thank you. If we find things that people are, if we lead from implementation, we might actually get plans that people are going to do. That visioning is engagement. Visioning isn't just tell me you want a puppy. That use this process to tell us more about what we could do to be more useful. And then find the tools that fit your small town rural community. Look at all of the plans that APA gives awards for every year. They're way out of scale for anything we do, but you can still find bits and pieces of those. If you're a star member or even aren't, look at the projects that the awards committee has keyed forward. Look at the things. Melissa's on the line. She's done some projects. Some of them have gotten awards. Others haven't, just because there was so much else going on there. Steal Melissa's work. It's out there, but it's not going to work in your community if it doesn't fit your community. We had a project that stuck with me, an affordable housing project in Idaho, where they brought in these little modular houses that look like something out of the 1960s. They're really retro, but they were really practical. They could bring them in, they could put them in a harsh environment, and people had someplace safe to live in. It's doable, not everywhere though. So find something that fits your community. Sorry, Melissa, if I wasn't picking on you. You guys just do good work.
You can always pick on me, John. It's okay.
So again, look at what everybody's doing, but find what fits for you. So here's your charge. And yeah, that some of this comes out of the if we're going to qualify for CMs, we have to do this. But hey, I've sat through enough of these. Let's make this useful. So, simple 90-day action plan for community engagement. One, go back to that question. Name your engagement role in your current plan cycle. If you're in the middle of a plan, think about where you are on that and how you could help it be more engaging. Two, pick 2 engagement methods. Don't go, oh my gosh, there's so many things I could do. Hey, we're going to find out when Rotary meets and see if they need a speaker. That we're gonna see, hey, ask the library, can we put up a tabletop display just saying, hey, this was something in our plan. Should we work on the park, or should we work on sidewalks? Put something out there that you can deliver on. Get people involved. Tie engagement to implementation. Again, what is something you can offer to people that can be done? Don't ask for a puppy, but maybe a dog park. I think I would have to put that in my next plan for a dog park. It seems to be coming around. As planners, we need to be visionaries, but the vision is just a vision without actually being able to do anything about it. Part of having a good vision is we sell implementation, but if we can focus on things we can actually get done, at least seed those into the plans and your action items, people are more likely to say, hey, that plan actually got something done. I'm not saying we're really, really good at this. We're trying to do better. So you got 10 minutes here until the top of the hour. Again, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for Chris for this opportunity. Star has not done a lot of the webinars. I know Mary Howard would love to have, hey, if there's somebody on the call, Star member, somebody interested in this that would like to help organize a webinar. We are members of the Fridays, the chapters and division sessions as well. It's just, we all get busy, but if you might want to try to organize one thing, hey, we're always here to help out. And I really appreciate Kelly and Chris reaching out to people and dealing with the technology and the outreach on these. Something we should do, we want to do. Also plug for the newsletter. If you'd rather write than talk, I am always interested in fitting 300, 600 words in our quarterly newsletter. We do the socials. And if you're going to be at the National Planning Conference in Detroit, look us up. We'll be around. So thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Anything you wanted to mention, or did we want to see if folks have any other questions and wanted to add? Now that I can.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
got
we
too
have a
many
few
screens
minutes.
going on here to keep
Oh,
track.
I relate to that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
we have a few minutes left if people want to ask some questions.
Oh, Rebecca from Montana. Rebecca Shaw Quinones is our treasurer. Glad you could get on, Rebecca. She can deal with the money all day long with APA bureaucracy. She's doing great work. I appreciate that. Bob Barber was our previous treasurer with Orion down south. Again, that takes a special kind of patience I do not have. So that's good. I could add a couple other examples if people want to look at some community engagement. I've I got a book, Ryan Short. There it is, The Civic Brand. He's got a consulting firm out of Buena Vista, Colorado. He comes at community engagement from the marketing side, but he's really an anti-marketer. So he's got a book if you want to put your money down. I've written about it. He's got some neat ideas. He's been working in places with he did a project up in northern in Gillette, Wyoming. Some neat stuff in there. That, and also a plug for Becky McCrae's book, An Idea-Friendly Guide. Becky is not a planner. She's a work. She has a ranch. She's on a business. She is all about implementation. Um, Either one of those are great resources. Not trying to sell books, but I do like my books.
John, I think Lydiana has a question.
Good, good. So,
Hi, yeah, thank you for this, and I appreciate the emphasis on rural and small town. It's really appreciated for because it's a different animal. We are in the midst of our comp plan work, and we have tried. We've done many of the things you mentioned. We set up pop-ups at our farmers market, our small town Friday night music event, our Fourth of July, our county fair, our local football game, like a lot of these kinds of things. But there's a group that I'm worried about that it's seniors, especially in the upper end of the senior range, because they're probably not mobile and out to these places. They're also probably not, they may or may not be on social media. Even our local seniors group has never really come back after COVID, so there's not a big enough cohort to kind of get them there. We also don't have an active ministerial association to try to hit there. So I'm just wondering any thoughts about uh, I would say the elder of seniors, people maybe 75 or above, or pick a number that
yeah,
might have mobility issues. How can we make sure that we're reaching them in a small town?
yeah, and that's a good concern. That most of the places I work out in on the Great Plains, it's only the people who are over 70 that show up at the meetings. That a lot of the places that we've been working, they came out of COVID where it was the seniors who got online because it was the only way they could go to church or see their grandkids. It differs different parts of the country. None of the social stuff has recovered. There's also a big difference. Here in Nebraska, they pretty much ignored COVID, but when I was living in southern Colorado, New Mexico, they took it very, very seriously. The tribal areas were just devastated. And the tribes are literally another nation, and each one of them has a different way of dealing with this. We also have the problems. Some of our rural areas are very wired, and other places you can't get a cell signal still. Um, so finding where the old farmers have coffee, and if you're really brave, go talk to them. Or better yet, find somebody who's one of their cohort and go with them and have them introduce you. The it's you got to reach people where they are, but that's also where you've been in one rural community, been in one rural community, and what goes on in the Delta is very different than in North Dakota. That you try to find those folks where you can, and maybe it's through your public health. We've had some real. We've started putting public health chapters in our plans. Some of our communities don't, they don't see the connection, but we've had some other ones like Hall County, Grand Island, Nebraska, where they were like, yes, yes, break down these silos. And they're, the public health people are talking to those people sometimes where we can't. We're looking for ideas. I know that that is something people have interest on, as well as the concern about just all the budget cuts in rural health. So I know we got a couple of times for a couple other. Thank you, Ladina. Oh yeah, Floyd County, Virginia, storied part of Appalachia. We had another question. We often implement we often implement state policies on a local level. Local community members do not always like. Oh no, no. Struggle with finding balance of engagement when there's nothing really that can be done. Do you have any ideas for this? I don't want to just not talk about policies, but it feels defeating for residents when none of the feedback can be implemented due to state requirements. Yeah, that's tough. I've been in the middle of those discussions just this week with state preemption, pushback. We've got a lot of vocal conflict over renewable energy, over confinement animal feeding operations in this part of my world. One is, remember, the plan is a community plan. It's not just what you can do in zoning. Zoning implements the plan, but it's not equal to plan, even though most people think it is. We need honest discussions about policies, but yeah, that why tell somebody they can have a puppy if they can't have a puppy? But we should talk about how all of these issues impact our communities. And sometimes our action item is we need to keep talking about this and find a better way to do it. we also got to have to talk to people about, you don't do a plan and then it sits on a shelf for 5 years, then you bring it up again. Sometimes the best plans simply set you up to have much more surgical discussions on issues. We don't have the answers, but we're going to bring this in to talk about more particular interests. But you're right. You've got to be careful. I've made plenty of career limiting statements in public meetings. One reason I've worked so many different places. I loved Colorado, but I'm in Nebraska now. So that you got to be careful and know, AICP, we have ethics. APA has ethics. We have to do what we can within our code of ethics. But you also need to feed your family. And that's hard for everybody. And engagement is where we're at, right out there in the public, taking those risks. So I think, Kelly, I've hit my shot clock. You want to talk about posting this, where this will go and all of that wonderful stuff?
Sure, yeah. So the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Here, I'll drop the link in the chat right now. And I'll share that link with you as well, John. So in case you want to put it in your newsletter on your website or whatnot, we'll put it in our newsletter. Also, I put the links to both of our websites in the chat, if you want to scroll up. And I think there's a few questions that maybe we didn't get to in the chat. So I don't know if you want to stay on, if anyone wants to stay on a few minutes longer. Do we want to?
I'm here as long as you haven't reached your curfew. So happy to talk. And I'm on LinkedIn. If folks want, they can subscribe to that newsletter here. The APA Star newsletter is a feature membership. If you want to add a division, we do have non-division. If you're not an APA member, you can just join the division, though that hopefully the new system makes that easier. APA is doing the best they can with what they've got. I'm always happy to share stuff wherever we can. We print things other people write. We've shared with some of our other divisions, the tribal division that's just formed. We've done some cross posting with them. They're addressing some very difficult issues, and kudos to the tribal group.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us. We understand if you have to hop off. It sounds like John's willing to stay on a little bit longer and answer a few more questions. I'll hang out with you, John, too, since I am in control of the webinar. So that's not a problem for me. We can stay on maybe like 10 or so more minutes. To everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all of your time.
Yeah. I also just earlier this week had a chance to be a guest on the Rural Strong podcast. Joe Barker does out of West Tennessee Economic Development District. Between the two, I've had my full of stress. This is something that's hard for me to do. And Kelly, I really appreciate that you've made this easy for us to reach out to folks, because we're really doing this as a service to our members. And
Great.
The success of everybody on this call is our success. That's what we want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, I'm just scrolling through the comments here to see if there was something that we missed. I know there was a question about, and I think we're small enough group now that people can probably just unmute themselves or raise their hand to ask their question.
Elizabeth Watson was asking about involving students. That really varies community by community, and there's some good examples. I see we got a couple comments in there. We will usually ask our local contact to reach out to the superintendent of schools, whoever's most appropriate, especially when you've got a consolidated school district, and we just make an offer. Sometimes I just talk to the superintendent. Other times it's the student council. Sometimes they'll pull a group of people together. Sometimes it's the 4-H. We got one community, they got a really active FFA group that I really want to meet with. It's just their schedule hasn't met with my schedule. So it's a bit you ask and see who responds. Maybe that means talking to your local Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop. Uh, the Girl Scouts are always out there trying to do community service. And it might be that, even if you're not right in the middle of a plan, it might be a good time to build some community by offering to speak. Um, it depends what community you're in, because schools, just the state of the nation anymore, they have to be careful who comes down to school grounds. It's just unfortunate. Yeah. So we've got some of those on there, and I think Elizabeth, she probably knows more about any of this than I'm ever going to learn. So thank you for the question. Appreciate it. We got some others. Great. So yes, Allison reminds us Eagle Scouts need projects. And of course, now that Scouting USA has both boys and girls and the gold projects for Girl Scouts. And again, that those are projects that are supposed to demonstrate leadership. We all sat on benches that commemorate an Eagle Scout project, but the best projects, you throw out ideas on there and see what they pick up. Always looking for Scout projects. So those are something good. So, well, great.